So when we talk about index notation and surds, it's all to do with numbers that are to the power of another, or we'll be looking at roots, for example, square roots, cube roots, and so on. The first law you should be aware of is that when we multiply a to the power of m times a to the power of n, for example, two index quantities with the same base, we add the powers. So in this case, it would be a to the power of m plus n. Likewise, when we divide, if we divide a to the power of m by a to the power of n, we simply subtract the powers. So our answer would be a to the power m minus n. If we raise an index quantity to another power, we multiply those powers. So for example, a to the power of m to the power of n would give us a to the power of m times n. Two other rules you should be familiar with is that a to the power of 0, or indeed anything to the power of 0, is equal to 1. And also that a to the power of minus m can be rewritten as 1 over a to the power of m. Right, so we've seen the laws of indices there. Now let's have a look at them in a couple of questions and put them into practice. So the first question we'll look at, nice easy one to start with, 2 to the power of 4 times 2 to the power of 5. Now our first law of indices said that when we have the same base, we simply add the powers when we multiply. So our answer here would be 2 to the power of 4 plus 5, or 2 to the power of 9. Let's look at one where we're dividing now. If I have 9 to the power of 7 divided by 9 squared, when we divide, remember, the rule tells us we should subtract the powers. So what I'd end up with would be 9 to the power of 7 take away 2, which gives me 9 to the power of 5. Remember, we're leaving these numbers as powers because it asks us in the question to write them in index form. Okay, let's look at a combination of both then. So let's have 5 to the power of 4 times 5 to the power of 7 divided by 5 cubed. So let's do the top calculation first. 5 to the power of 4 times 5 to the power of 7 is 5 to the power of 11. Still dividing, remember that line means divide, by 5 cubed. And when we divide, we subtract the powers. So our final answer would be 5 to the power of 8. And one final question, 3 times 3 to the power of 5, all divided by 3 squared. Now the common trap people fall into in this one is when there's no power there, they forget that it is in effect to the power of 1. And if it helps you remember it, whenever you see a number without a power in one of these questions, put in the number 1 to remind you it's to the power of 1. 3 to the power of 1, therefore, times 3 to the power of 5 would be 3 to the power of 6, divided by 3 squared. And we know that when we divide, we subtract the powers to leave us with a final answer in index form of 3 to the power of 4. Now, sometimes you won't just be required to work out the answer to an index notation calculation. They may well ask you for one of the numbers within the calculation, and they'll provide you with the answer to help. So if we take a look at this calculation here, 3 to the power of 5 multiplied by 3 to the power of n equals 3 to the power of 9. And they want us to write down what n is worth. So they've already given us the answer, but the answer is the thing that's going to help us work out what that power of n is. You notice it's been multiplied, the two terms have been multiplied together. They have the same base, which means I must have added those powers together in order to get the 9. So think to yourself, 5 add what would give me the 9, and you come out with n being equal to 4. Let's have a look at another example. So in this one, they tell us that 75 equals 5 to the power of n multiplied by 3. And again, they want us to work out what n is. Now, you may be able to spot this straight away, but if not, use the fact that we've multiplied this by 3 to get 75 as your first step of working out. So when you think to yourself, what number multiplied by 3 would give me 75, you should come up with 25. So the first thing I can say is that I know 5 to the power of n is equal to 25. because 25 times 3 is 75. Now when I see it written like this, it's easy for me to work out what my power of n must be, because 5 squared is 25. So in this case, my n value would be equal to 2. One more example to look at. 128 equals 4 to the power of n multiplied by 2. So the same sort of thing as before. Let's first of all work out what this quantity is worth, what our 4 to the power of n is worth. Well, if you think about it, what number multiplied by 2 gives me 128? 64. So 4 to the power of n, therefore, is worth 64. So now we need to work out 4 to the power of what gives us 64. And when we think about it, 4 to the power of 1 is 4, 4 squared is 16, 4 cubed is 64. So n, therefore, is equal to 3 in this case.